On July 24th, President Trump signed the Recessions Act of 2025. This act rescinded previously allocated federal funding for the corporate of public broadcasting. Due to the loss of federal funding, the CPB announced on November 1st that it will begin an orderly wind-down of its operations. The CPB informed employees that a majority of staff positions will conclude with the close of the fiscal year on September 30th, 2025. A small transitional team will remain through January 2026 to ensure a responsible and efficient closeout of operations. This marks the end of an almost 60-year run by the CPB, which was created on November 7, 1967, when President Lyndon B. Johnson signed the Public Broadcasting Act in 1967. Created to provide federal funding for public television and radio, the CPB has allowed for the distribution of educational and cultural content to millions of viewers, along with acting as a buffer against political influence. The loss of the CPB will largely affect the 1,500 local public and radio television stations across the United States, especially in low-income and rural areas. NPR and PBS will also see their funding significantly reduced, leaving viewers who depend on their programming for news, culture, and education without such content. This loss will be a significant blow to the infrastructure that supports public broadcasting, such as securing music rights and providing essential services. However, on August 21st, Michigan State Representative Jason Morgan from Ann Arbor introduced legislation designed to protect free, independent public media in Michigan after the loss of federal funding. The Save Elmo Act bill, which stands for Securing Access to Vibrant, Enlightening Education and Local Media Outlets, is designed to create new public funds to keep PBS and other public radio and TV stations on the air, along with supporting childhood education and preserving trusted local journalism. We met with Representative Morgan to get his opinions on the bill.
Yeah, well, it's great chatting with you. For me, public broadcasting is something that families can turn to for safe, trusted information, news, and educational content. I grew up in northern Michigan, not too far from where you are, in Pinconning, Michigan, in a very rural community, working class family. And for me, PBS was really all I had growing up. That was back during a time when we only had about 5 stations on the television, and PBS Channel 19 at the time was what we had to learn from, to have educational and informational entertainment that, it was one of the very few things that we had. And for me, public broadcasting is that for so many people. It's one of the last truly nonpartisan, unbiased, educational, wholesome things that we have left in the air. And we have to protect that in our state. Yeah, and it's been providing the service for over 60 years, almost 60 years in this country. There are very few things that have withstood the test of time. And I would hope that we would have another 60 years plus of public media existing in our state and our country.
What led you to develop the Save Elmo Act, and what is the importance behind it?
Yeah, let's start with the moment that we are in. The truth is that public broadcasting is being attacked at the federal level, not just for budget cuts, but for political reasons. There are a lot of folks in this country today that do not want free and independent public media. They want something that's biased to the left or to the right, and they want to silence a lot of independent voices that might say things that are uncomfortable truths about what's happening in the world. And that is the core of where this comes from. There are a lot of things that are being cut at the federal level, a lot of wild things happening in the world broadly. But to pull the rug on public media just doesn't feel right. And I was very upset about this when it was cut from the federal administration, and thought, I don't want to just be upset about this. I want to propose a real actionable solution. And that's what the Save Elmo Act is. The Save Elmo Act is a real solution that we can pass anytime, any day, and include in a state budget to protect free and independent media here in Michigan. In the short term, the Save Elmo Act will keep our local stations on the air and help them get through the next couple of years to until we can hopefully restore federal funding for public media in this country. It'll keep the shows in the air that kids are watching to learn, and it'll keep Sesame Street on the air, and it'll keep public media on the radio, and make sure that our local news is getting to the community and getting to residents. It'll help our seniors have that connection to what's happening in the world and in their communities. So in the short term, it's to get us through until we can make some change at the federal level to restore this critical funding for public media, with the idea that if we can save it for a little bit here, then we can sustain that for the next generation to be able to learn and enjoy the same things that I grew up learning. My hope is that people will understand that public media belongs to the people, that it is not for sale, it's not for negotiation for partisan political purposes. My hope is that it will, passing the Save Elmo Act would tell families that their voices do matter and that our kids' futures are worth fighting for. And it would also tell future legislators that, when Washington, D.C. attacks something and tears it down, that we at the state level can step up and stand up for what's right and build that back. That's what my hope is, and that we will protect freedom of speech and freedom of information and access to culture and education and local news throughout Michigan. That's my hope, is that we can pass this and send that message to the folks in our state.
The act would provide $13 million in funding to support local public broadcasting stations serving Michigan communities. Each station would be eligible for a grant up to $1.5 million, which would be awarded through the Michigan Department of Education, depending on the size and the needs of each station. This would allow for these affected stations to continue programming, staffing, technical operations, and infrastructure upgrades, along with other operations. Eligible stations must be Michigan-based and demonstrate a commitment to non-commercial, public interest programming that serves local educational, civic, and cultural needs.
I would just encourage folks that they support the Save Elmo Act and public media, that they contact their legislators as soon as possible, because we are continuing to work on the state budget process, and that timeline is short. So I believe this is really important. I believe a lot of folks agree with me in the legislature and throughout our state, but with anything, a budget comes down to prioritization. And so the question is, will public media get prioritized as something that is important to protect in our state budget? My hope is yes, but that answer lies with the people and whether they contact their legislators and let them know that they agree with that idea.